It's time for the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm, of course, your host, Brian Beatty. Gosh, 13 years I've been on this program helping you guys understand the local real estate market. So I've been selling real estate for 20 years. I've sold about 1,500 properties in that time, and I have a real estate team, a property management company, a private money lending company, and I invest in real estate as well. So I bring all that experience to the table to help you guys understand what's happening in the market, to educate you on the process so that you can make some informed decisions, whether it's buying a home, selling a home, investing in real estate, maybe choosing real estate as your career path, everything in between. So I've got a lot of information for you guys today. I really want to dig deep into the statistics of our market, helping you guys really understand why we are in the position that we're in. You know, there are some articles that are starting to come out, and I mean, all you have to do is Google housing news or real estate news or economy news, and it is overwhelmingly negative. It is overwhelmingly bad, right? Well, we've been talking on this program for several months about the shift that's occurring in the market. And so I really want to dig down deep and help you guys understand from a few different perspectives what's going on and what, in my opinion, is going to happen, at least in the short term. And I do want to say, just as a quick disclaimer of sorts, that this is really tough information to predict, right? It's really challenging right now in this environment with the economic uncertainty, with the lack of consumer confidence, to say with certainty what's going to happen. I can tell you what I think is going to happen for the most part, but this is, by no way a foolproof and prediction for what's going to happen. Right? Things can change, but here's where we stand, and here's kind of where I want to start with things. And first, let me just say, if you guys want to reach out to me, if you want information on your specific area, you're thinking of selling your home, you want to understand these statistics as they relate to you and your situation, then feel free to give me a call, 843-800-0065. Call or text that number, 843-800-0065, or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. I will also say that, we put all of these shows on YouTube, and we're going to superimpose a bunch of graphs and charts to help you guys see the visuals of what I'm talking about. So for those of you that are just listening in your car or wherever, it might be a little challenging at times to follow along. I promise not to inundate you with data, but there's a lot that I feel like we need to cover here. So let's just start with some of the basics, right? Let's start with just some of the popular statistics. And I'm going to do this by county. If we look, first of all, at just overall home values in the Tri-County area, Charleston County, the median sales price, $600,000. Berkeley County, $372,000. Dorchester, $357,000. Now, over the past year, Charleston's gone up 3.4%. Berkeley County's gone up 1.2%, and Dorchester has gone up 0.2%. If I look at just the overall inventory of properties for sale, this is where things start to get a little tricky. You've got about a little over 1,900 homes available in Charleston County, a little over 900 in Berkeley County, and that's a freaky statistic, 666 in Dorchester County. But so what we look at and some of the things that we analyze to determine trends in this market are things like, how many properties are on the market right now? Is that number steadily increasing, decreasing, or staying the same? Because if it is decreasing or staying the same, then that means that demand is in line with the number of homes that we're putting on the market at any given point in time. We also look at how long it's taking. We look at what percentage of their asking price they get. We look at how the overall strategy of selling a house impacts the seller's bottom line. And so we have, I have access to information and statistics that, frankly, most people don't. I pay for this information, and I use it to really help people understand the trajectory of the market and what they can do about it now. I think the question a lot of people have right now is, does it make sense to wait? And it's a valid question. And this is the challenge. This is where things get a little hairy for real estate agents. And I understand the irony in that I, of course, am a real estate agent and a radio show host and do a bunch of other things too. But the challenge is real estate agents don't want to tell you to wait, right? They always want to come up with a reason why now is the best time to buy or sell a house, right? It's as old as the tale of time. I mean, it's look back at any major moment in our market and a real estate agent came up with a reason why that specific time was the best time to buy or sell a house. Obviously, I'm a little more methodical, and my approach, not just on this show, but with my clients, is to give them the full picture, is for them to really understand what's happening in the market. And my opinion might not always match that particular buyer or seller's goal. And that's okay. You know, I think the challenge that we have in this market right now, and I'm going to prove this through data as time goes by, but the challenge that we have in the market right now, well, one of the many challenges is that properties are overpriced. They're overpriced either because the real estate agent is telling the seller what they think the seller wants to hear, or the seller just wants what they want, and the data doesn't necessarily matter. In order for them to sell, they need to get this price to justify moving to another property. I think you have agents that struggle with standing up to sellers and telling them that, hey, what you want is all well and good, and you have every right to want what you want. I think what the market is going to produce is going to be something different, and here's why. I personally enjoy having those types of conversations with people, not because I enjoy confrontation. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I want the people that work with me to understand that I have taken the time, not just on their particular property, to be able to articulate what's happening in their market and how they can use that information to formulate a plan. But it's also the fact that I've been a student of the market for 2 decades. I've had a show here for 13 years. And of course, I'm going to analyze the data every week. Over time, that just forces you to become an expert in your subject matter. So, there's a lot going on in this market right now. One thing that I'm going to make this really simple. If you take every 100 properties that hit the market, 20 right now, the first quarter of this year, for every 100 properties that hit the market, 24 of them will not sell. Now, they're not going to sell with their first agent. They might hire a different agent as time goes by to increase the odds of them selling their home, or they just might not sell at all. They might realize that, hey, what I want and what I'm trying to achieve is just not, the market is not allowing for it, right? So for every 100 properties that hit the market, 24 are not going to sell. Of the 76 that do sell, half of them are taking a price reduction in order to sell. Half of them do not need to adjust their price. Now, the ones that don't need to adjust their price, this is interesting, and this is why this market throws people off. And this is why strategy and experience and precision is so important in this market right now. Of the properties that did not need to reduce their price, that were priced effectively, that were marketed well, they sold for 100% of their asking price in 7 days. If, however, somebody needed to take a price adjustment, they ended up selling in 100 days for 93% of their original asking price. And then on top of that, if they were previously on the market with another agent and they had to relist it with somebody else, the average days on market was 146 days, and they were getting 91.8% of their asking price. So pricing is incredibly important. And I know that everybody wants to make interest rates the bad guy right now because that's easy, right? That's an easy narrative. The income needed to afford real estate right now is extremely high. If we look 3 years ago, the median sales price in Charleston County was $480,000. Now let's just call it $600,000, right? So it's gone up 25% in the past 3 years. Well, 3 years ago, when interest rates were a little different, the income needed to afford a $480,000 house was $75,000. Now it's $146,000. So yeah, prices have gone up by 25%, but the income needed to afford that price now has doubled. That's a real challenge. That's a real problem. So interest rates, it's easy to make them out to be the bad guy, but we learned that the Fed did not adjust rates. I think that the 7%, maybe 6.5% mark is here to stay for quite a while. But what people aren't really putting their attention on is just the price of real estate in connection to how much people are making, right? The price increases that we've seen have far outpaced income growth in our area. And I know that a lot of people say, well, a lot of people come in here from, other markets and they're selling in more expensive markets and they're bringing cash to the table. And that's true. But there are still plenty of people that want to sell here and buy here that just aren't making the income needed to make that transition. And I'll talk more about that in just a minute when we come back. So we've got a lot to talk about today. A lot of fun information, in my opinion. It's not going to be all boring stats, though, for those of you that don't like numbers. We're going to talk about a few other things as well. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Remember, reach out to me if you have any questions, 843-800-0065. That's my number. It comes straight to me. You can call or text me on that number. Check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. Or, check out our YouTube videos. We have over 1,000 videos on YouTube. Just search the Brian Beatty team. And then we also turn this into a podcast for those of you that like to listen to podcasts, which is on iTunes and Spotify and Google Play and iHeartRadio and all that good stuff. So we're talking about the market in depth today. We're really analyzing kind of how we got to where we are right now and what the future of the real estate market looks like, at least in the short term. So that's the objective for today. That's what we're trying to accomplish. That's what we're trying to help people understand, because at the end of the day, there's just a lot of, on one hand, there's misinformation. On the other hand, there's, anybody can take any data point and then create a story around it to make it sound in a way that matches the narrative they're trying to put across, right? You can look at something like days on market and you can say that the increase in days on market has, doubled, right? But if it went from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, is that really a huge deal? Is that really a huge concern? It's just an example of the power of data and the information and the way that it's spun, right? My objective today is not to spin the data. It's to share the data and help you understand what's going on. From that information, you can extrapolate your own opinion on the direction of the market. At the end of this show, I'm going to share mine. And we'll see if it matches up. But I want to go through a few other just data points, help you guys understand really what's happening in this market. So when I look at, we were talking earlier about the number of homes that were available for sale in different areas, right? One thing that we look at is the increase in inventory and whether or not the inventory is being absorbed at the same rate or at a lower rate than it has been in the past. In other words, is inventory growing? Is month's supply of inventory growing or staying the same? Well, it's growing. It's up about 33% from this time last year. But if you look at just inventory overall, right, the number of homes for sale compared to last year, Charleston has increased 51%. Berkeley County has increased 22%, and Dorchester County has increased 47.5%. That's a large increase in inventory in a short period of time. If you look at the number of properties that are now reducing their price in order to sell, first of all, we've got a 10-year baseline, right? So over the past 10 years, on average, about 20% of every home on the market adjusted their price downward in order to sell. Now, in the Tri-County area, we're almost double that, right? In Charleston County, it's 33%. In Dorchester County, it's 37%. And in Berkeley County, it's 38%. That's a large percentage of inventory to have to reduce their price. Now, remember, we also mentioned that for every 100 properties that hit the market, 24 will not sell the first time around. Either they won't sell at all or they won't sell with the first agent they hire. So if we know that 24 out of 100 aren't going to sell and 38 of the 100 needed to adjust their price downward in order to sell, well then, we can extrapolate from that data that over 60% of the homes that are listed for sale right now are overpriced. That's what the data says. And I don't see how you argue that point. But what's interesting is, we were talking about the percentage of, or the income that you needed in order to afford these prices as they've gone up. And again, over the past 3 years, prices have gone up about 25%, but the income needed went from basically 75 grand to 146 grand. It almost doubled. That's why so many people are sitting on the sidelines right now. And then they watch days on market continue to increase, like Charleston's 43 right now, Berkeley County is 41, Dorchester County is 37. You're starting to see the market, you're starting to see the data show up that substantiate the trends that we've been talking about on this program for months, right? It takes a while for the data to get recorded, and we need enough data over time to then confidently say we've established the trend line. Well, again, as somebody that just has a lot of conversations with people, sells a lot of real estate, we have an ear to the ground that allows us to just, kind of get a glimpse into the mind of the everyday buyer or seller, what their concerns are, and what's promoting action or what's preventing action. A lot of that revolves around consumer confidence and just how people are feeling about the process of buying or selling a home right now. And what I'll say is this, and so let me just, let's talk about that for a second. On the seller side, again, you still have plenty of people that are playing this game of what I call leapfrog pricing, right? They're always putting their home on the market for more than the most recent sale, right? They're anticipating that appreciation will catch up to the price that they've set for their house. In many instances and in many little sub-markets within our Tri-County area, the trend line is flat, right? The homes that are pricing more than recent sales are having to come down or maybe even slightly lower than what recently sold in order to actually sell. So on the seller side, there's just, it takes a while for sellers to realize that we're not in the market that we were in 3, 4, 5 years ago. There's just a denial period, right? We were talking earlier about all these short-term rentals that are going to hit the market either through a reduction in the number of people that are coming to stay at their property and therefore the income that they're making, or, municipal changes that prevent them from doing short-term rentals or cap the number of people that can do short-term rentals. I mean, Park Circle is kind of a mess right now. North Charleston is a mess as it relates to short-term rentals, and it's impacting the market. But, again, sellers and then the real estate agents that go after sellers because they want a listing. And this is the thing to understand. Agents need things to market in order to create leads, to create clients, to create sales. If an agent doesn't have any listings to promote, it makes their job significantly harder. But if they've got a few properties that are on the market, people are calling them, they can do open houses. If they actually understand marketing, that they can generate leads online from that. But for a lot of real estate agents, let's just call it like it is, it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to sell your house. They just need to market it well enough to create a transaction out of your listing. And I know that's kind of like a bleak outlook, but it's true. Agents use listings to promote their business, to create sales, regardless of whether their listing actually sells or not, right? More listings create more opportunities. And that's the challenge that a lot of people have as it relates to selling their house, is maybe the real estate agent that they chose isn't as committed to selling the property as the seller is. And that obviously is a challenge. So you have sellers that are in denial. They don't believe the data yet. And part of that could be because, hey, maybe they're hearing stories of a friend that just sold a house and it sold in 3 days and they got 10 offers. And, those stories are becoming fewer and further between, but they still exist. I mean, we just had a multiple offer situation on, a waterfront piece of land. And it's not like land is selling super fast right now, but we sold it in a few days with multiple offers. But it was because we priced it correctly. We actually priced it above the appraised value of the property because we knew we could sell it for more. And that's part of the reason why, again, choosing the right real estate agent is so important. If we had just listed that property at appraised value or under appraised value, we would have lost out on a lot of money for that seller. So data is one thing, yes, but understanding the trajectory of the market and understanding how to analyze the demand within the market is something else entirely. It's something that I think takes experience and time. So again, the narrative for the seller right now is that they don't necessarily want to believe that we are in a shifting market. They'll believe it when they see it. And so a lot of sellers, again, over 60% of sellers right now are entering the market overpriced, which then, again, and I've talked about this on this program, but when you market a home for sale initially, right, when you put the home on the market, you've got two groups of people that are going to be interested. Group number one are the people that are ready, willing, and able to buy right now, right? They are just waiting for the right house to hit the market. And if it fits their needs, they're going to buy it. Group number two are the people that enter the market every day because something has changed in their life, right? Now they're ready to buy a house. Well, when you first hit the market, you're marketing to both of those groups of people, but you exhaust group number one after about, let's call it 3 weeks, right? 3 weeks is enough time for the ready, willing, and able group of buyers to get their act together and come and see your house and decide on whether they want to make an offer or not, right? So if you don't get an offer within the first, call it 3 weeks, then the only way to really re-engage that first group of ready, willing, and able buyers is to change something about the house. Maybe it's condition, maybe it's an incentive, maybe more often than not, it's the price, right? And so you have sellers that are basically shooting themselves in the foot by overpricing when they hit the market. And then what people do online, and if you've bought a home recently, then you're probably shaking your head up and down in agreement. What you'll do is you'll save that listing, right? Whether it's on Zillow or it's through your, agent that's sending you properties through the MLS or however you're receiving that information, you're going to earmark that property and you're going to say, all right, I'm going to keep an eye on that one. I like it, just not at this price. And that's the thing, is that buyers are pretty decently educated with regard to value, especially if they're looking with serious intent, right? Because it's pretty easy for a buyer in this market to look at a property and say, yep, that one's going to sell quickly, or I don't know about that. That one seems overpriced. And so if they seem to think that it's overpriced, then they're just going to watch and wait for you to make an adjustment to then come and see the property. And that is, frankly, a great strategy for buyers right now. When representing a buyer, if a property hits the market and we know they're overpriced, we're not going to wait for them to make a price adjustment. We're going to offer what we feel is appropriate. But for those sellers that have been on the market for 30, 60, 90, 100 plus days, they become a little more desperate. They become a little more open to the idea of selling because the number of buyers looking at their property at any given point in time has lowered, right? The more time a property sits on the market, the less buyers there are for it. So buyers are doing a pretty decent job right now of just waiting and letting those sellers feel that pain to then come in and negotiate in an environment where the seller is more open-minded, or they've now realized that, hey, if your home hasn't sold by this point at this price, chances are it's not going to. And so they use that against the seller and they negotiate. And it's not that they're trying to quote unquote beat you up. It's that they know you're overpriced because your home hasn't sold. And again, if we go back to that simple, boiled down metric of every 100 homes that hit the market, 24 won't sell, half will sell, of the ones remaining, half will sell. They won't have to adjust their price. They're going to get 100% of their asking price in 7 days. But if you miss the mark on pricing, then you're selling for 93% of your asking price in 100 days. Now, for the folks that are selling like a vacant home, it's a second home, it's a rental, it's, anything in between, you have to think about the carrying cost, right? There's real cost associated with that. So It's an interesting time. We're going to continue to talk about this, but I need to take a quick break. So stick around for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want some statistics for your specific area as it relates to your home or the area that you want to buy in, I have information on all kinds of stuff that we can use to our advantage to produce and present an offer with a higher likelihood of getting accepted because it's substantiated by data. So if that's something I can do for you, feel free to give me a call or text me at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. I always like to take a moment and just say that I appreciate you guys for listening to this program, for tuning in consistently, for educating yourself on the real estate market and the real estate process. See, this is a very important financial decision. People say one of, if not the most important in your lifetime is buying or selling a house, because it's where you can stand to make or lose a lot of money. So I just appreciate those of you that tune in and rely on me to help you guys understand what's happening. And for those of you that have questions that you want to just spitball, maybe you're thinking about entering the market, you want to time it right, you're thinking of buying, selling, investing, let's just have an off-air chat. Let's talk about what your thoughts are and how I see the market playing out in your specific area, in your price range, with your goals in mind. So 843-800-0065 is the number to call or text, 843-800-0065. Or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And of course, remember, check us out on YouTube and listen to our podcast as well. So, as we're going through all of these data points, I realize that not everybody loves this this kind of information. And so for those of you that do, you're lapping it up. For those of you that are like, gosh, get to something else, I'm going to go ahead and switch gears here. But again, if you want access to this information, I can get incredibly granular with this information. And it's not information that you can just go and find online. These are services that I pay for that really give some interesting insight into specific markets. So again, if you want that information, happy to provide it to you. 843-800-0065 or listingsincharleston.com. So I want to talk for just a moment about strategy in selling in this market. As you guys might recall, for those that listen to this program regularly, we have hired a market statistician based out of Atlanta to provide our company solely with some interesting data points, things that just don't exist. I mean, our Realtor Association and our MLS provide us with some statistics. This is a different set of information that really helps us kind of see between the lines, read between the lines. One of them is the challenge of selling a property in an environment where you're competing with new construction properties. Classic example is the Somerville, $400,000 to $700,000 price range. There are just a lot of properties for sale in that general area, in that general price range. A lot of them are new construction. And one thing to take into consideration really quickly is that, as we see inventory continue to increase, what's important to understand is that these new construction communities, it's not like they put every potential home site they have available on the market at any given point in time, right? They release properties in stages. They try not to flood the market. They do that intentionally. The reason I mention that is because what we're looking at and the increase that we're seeing in inventory isn't the full picture. There are plenty of other properties that are waiting to hit the market, either as permits get approved and just different stages of the development process get completed, right? New inventory continues to surface. So the market it's a very interesting dynamic right now. This is why I say that you really need to work with somebody that can look at your specific area and not apply some market-wide generalization or nationwide generalization about the real estate market to your specific situation. That's not how this works. You need somebody that can really interpret, analyze, and present information to you in a way that makes sense based on your area, based on your price range, based on the dynamics of that specific market, right? Every market's different. Even down to the neighborhood can be different. So I guess just a little note there for you. So when we're looking at properties that are selling right now, again, going back to the strategy of selling property in this market, what we are seeing is that basically half, it's like 49.9% of all properties that sold in the first quarter of this year offered concessions to the buyer. Now, concessions are closing costs. They're repairs. They are interest rate buy downs. They are, incentives. Maybe they'll, with a full price offer, they'll give you $5,000 toward flooring or painting allowance or whatever it is. It's just extra incentives in order to sell the property. Right now, half of everything that's selling is having to offer an incentive. And on average, that incentive is $8,000. It's really important that we understand that because, again, as this market shifts and as more options become available for buyers, what they are already doing, it's already started. It's not something that's going to happen. It's happening. They are using the inventory that's available to get a better deal on the house that they ultimately buy. I mean, like if you look at the market as it changed from 2007 to 2012, I mean, in Charleston County, property values went down 27%. Dorchester County went down 30%. And Berkeley County went down 23%. So yes, prices in real estate can come down. But a very popular strategy back then was that, hey, if you don't take my offer, I'm just going to go down the street to the other person that's listed that's very similar and see if they're a little more motivated to sell. Right? So that's a narrative that a lot of buyers are using right now as more inventory hits the market. Obviously, more options means less demand for your specific home, which creates softening in prices. And if you look at the properties that basically are just overvalued, right? If you look at the overvaluation percentage, which is calculated by comparing the area's current value divided by the income ratio, right? The long-term averages, Charleston County is overpriced by about 20%. Dorchester County by 18.5%, Berkeley County by 15% in relation to incomes. So on one hand, there's an argument to be made that prices can and maybe will come down because it doesn't seem as though the interest rates are going to be our savior, right? I think we're stuck with the 7, maybe 6.5, maybe 7.5, depending upon the day and what happens in the world. But I don't see interest rates being our saving grace. And if we know that incomes aren't skyrocketing right now, then is this market sustainable is the question. I don't think it is. Because again, the income needed to afford the median priced home in our area, they just don't match up. And so what a lot of people will do is they'll rent. And if you look at the difference between the cost of buying versus renting, I mean, for a long time, the amount of money it would cost to rent a property versus the amount of money it would cost to buy a property were almost the same. From 2010 to 2020, parts of 2021, it was almost identical. But then over the past 4 years, it has shot way up. The difference is extremely different than it has been over the past several years. It's 76% more expensive to buy a house than it is to rent a house right now. That's a challenge. So again, another factor that impacts demand. So if you're a seller right now, and we know that this market is softening, then what strategies do we need to employ to ensure that you have the best opportunity possible to sell your home for the most money in the least amount of time with the least amount of stress? We're going to talk about that in just a little bit, but what I will say is that it starts with self-education, right? Now, I've written a guide. It's close to 50 pages long. It's self-written by me that explains the process of selling a house and how to save money along the way. There are all these little points in time where you're going to make a decision that will make you money or lose you money. So if you want to get some insight into this process of selling a house and how to win, then download my guide. All you have to do is just text the word guide to 843-800-0065. Text the word guide to 843-800-0065, and I'll send that right over to you. Look, I know the market is uncertain right now, and a lot of people are questioning whether now is the right time to jump in or should I wait. And it's a very appropriate question to be asking right now. If I'm a buyer or a seller and I'm thinking about entering this market, I want to know what I'm in store for. And at the end of the day, no buyer out there wants to buy a home if they have reason to believe that by this time next year, it's going to be worth less than what they bought it for. I'm not necessarily saying that that's the trajectory of our market. That's just the overwhelming concern among buyers right now is that, hey, if I'm going to buy a house, am I going to be in a position this time next year where it's not worth what I paid for it? It's worth less. The other challenge is that people, again, when we look at home prices in relation to income, people are stretching themselves really hard to be able to purchase a property. If you look at the median income right now in like Charleston County as an example, the median income is 48% of what is necessary. Like 48% of your income is going to go to your mortgage payments. That does not include, by the way, taxes and insurance. So it's actually higher than that. Dorchester County is 33%. Berkeley County is 32%. So, yeah, I mean, the market has some signs right now of softening. We've been talking about that for months. But if you're a seller in this market right now, let me just give you a few takeaways, some things to consider. First of all, take your time in hiring the agent that is going to help you with this process. Interview people. You know, we were talking earlier about the fact that basically 1 in every 4 homes that hits the market does not sell the first time around. And if you have to relist it with somebody else, then you're going to sell on average in like 5 months and you're going to get 92% of your asking price. Or you can get it right the first time, sell for full price in 7 days. So take your time in interviewing your real estate agent. Ask tough questions. Don't pull punches. Make sure that they're really knowledgeable. They're experienced. And a lot of real estate agents are, they walk into houses and there's no surprise here. They have a canned presentation. They have things that they have practiced talking about so that they seem to be experienced and knowledgeable about the market. Don't be afraid to ask some questions that knock them off their game. See how they handle themselves in those types of situations. I think a really great real estate agent is not just a problem solver, they're a problem finder, right? They identify the issues before they become real issues. We talk about it, we discuss potential solutions, and we're always operating with, we're one step ahead, right? And that's the whole point of this show, is to help you guys be one step ahead. So first of all, take your time in selecting your real estate agent. The agent that you hire right now matters. It matters a lot. Number 2 is we are no longer in a market where you can just put your home on the market and expect people to fight over it and pay you full price if your home's not in great shape, right? Buyers are using anything they can find these days to increase their negotiability with you. And if you think about it, everybody that owns a home at one point was a buyer, right? Everybody's been waiting for some data points that they can use to their advantage against the seller because it's been such an overwhelmingly seller-driven market for the past several years. So, of course, buyers are going to take advantage, right? They're going to make things appear to be worse than they might be. They're looking for anything they can to try and get a good deal on your house, right? So you can eliminate that by repairing your home before you hit the market. Or if you don't have the budget for that, let's at least identify how much those repairs should cost by getting quotes from reputable contractors. That's one thing that we have in spades. We have fantastic relationships with anything that you want done to your house. We have a person for that. And that's something that you compile over a 20-year career. But I'm also a real estate investor, right? I buy homes, I flip homes. And so, of course, I have people that do all that work for me. I don't do any of the work myself. I can make more money by paying a contractor to do the work and me just focus on my day job than I can save by trying to do the work myself. What's going to end up happening is I'm going to do the work myself and then I'm going to have to hire somebody to fix all the mistakes I made, and it's going to cost me more anyways. But anyways, get the information on how much those repairs are going to cost so that you don't get taken advantage of by a buyer or the buyer's contractor, right? I've talked about this a lot on this program. If you decide not to do anything to your house, either because you don't have the budget, you don't have the time, or you don't have the interest, that's fine. But let's at least identify how much those things should cost to repair so that we don't get blindsided by some contractor's quote that's going to be way higher than what we could actually get the work done for ourselves. Because again, no contractor out there that's walking through with a buyer to identify how much things are going to cost. If the contractor knows that the seller's footing the bill, then of course they're going to take advantage too, right? It's not like they're going to do the seller any favors. So that is an important piece to the puzzle. We're finding more and more that condition is preventing offers. So we either need to address them up front, or we need to at least have the information at the ready to counter whatever that buyer thinks that project might cost. Another important, obviously we've talked about price, right? We've talked about price a lot and how important that initial price is. Sit down with your agent, look at the data. Don't just take their word for it. Have them prove it. Have that be part of the presentation. Have them show you the data. Show me the money, right? And then the last piece is marketing. Marketing, and I could do an entire show on marketing, and maybe one day I will, if you guys care to hear it. But marketing right now is incredibly important. If you are working with somebody that is simply going to put it in the MLS, once the property goes in the MLS, it then syndicates to every major website out there, right? Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, Homes.com, you name it. It all gets syndicated at once to these different sites. So for a lot of agents, it's kind of like a set it and forget it approach, right? It's once it goes in the MLS, then it becomes available online, and all these people use these websites, and they're going to see the house and make decisions on whether they want to come and view it in person and make an offer or not. And if it doesn't work in a few weeks, well, we'll just reduce the price. I mean, that is the overwhelming majority of the experience that most people have when selling their house. What is incredibly important, in my opinion, right now is to work with a real estate agent that has marketed properties in a market like this before, and that has the tools, the strategy, the budget, and the manpower to create opportunity, right? To actually go out into the market and source buyers for you. It sounds easy. The process, there's a learning curve to it. And of course, you have to have a budget for something like that. So for us, when we list a property for sale, we proactively identify people based on their demographics, geographics, and online behaviors. And then we serve ads to them for the properties that we're selling because we've identified them as a potential buyer for the house. In other words, we're going to the buyers rather than hoping the buyers find their way to us. So we can talk a lot more about that as time goes by. But those are the things, if I were a seller, I'd really be focused on right now. So appreciate you guys listening. If you guys, again, want a copy of my guide, 843-800-0065 is the number. Just text the word guide to 843-800-0065. Check us out online. Check us out on YouTube. You guys have a great weekend. Thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065.